Hey guys, I am back, and I apologize ahead of time if you hear some kind of rumbling or background noise. I'll try my best to get rid of it, but that is actually my heater because it is 9 degrees where I'm at right now. So yeah, that's pretty fucking cold, but hey, at least I'm not a Minneapolis faggot. Haha, have fun reliving John Carpenter's The Thing. Anyway, I'm moving on now. So, what I wanted to talk about is something that for the past few weeks, because yeah, it's been about 2 weeks or so since it came out, I've really been struggling with my opinion towards Punisher Season 2. This might seem like a really out-of-date review. As stated, this is something I had to take a lot of time to think about, just because it's one of those mixed bags where it's almost the exact definition of the phrase mixed bag. I mean, there's so much that you have to juggle with it that you like, but then you hate this, but then you really like this, but then this part pisses you off. I mean, it's not really that simple to sit down and really explore your thoughts, because I feel like a lot of people are, one, giving the season a lot more shit than I think it really deserves, but at the same time, I don't think it's getting enough shit. Like I said, it's like a hurricane right now, where everything's just jumbled together and hard to focus on. But, okay, I'll just break everything down to brass tacks and explain what I liked, what I didn't like, and kind of why I personally think I prefer the first season more. Okay, so, Punisher Season 2 is just out on Netflix. Things I liked. The violence is really good. A lot of blood. A lot of people die. A lot of women get punched in the face. Frank really respects women. I love it. He punches all the women. He punches minorities. You see a minority get beaten up by a bunch of white Russians. It's great. I love seeing black people get beaten up by Russians. I love it. Another thing I really liked the preacher guy, the preacher assassin. I thought he was really cool, but he wasn't in it enough. I'll kind of explain more of that when I get to the parts I didn't like, but the concept of his character and a lot of his behaviors I actually really thought were cool. The guy who played him really managed to get that depressed badass, like Anton Chigurh vibe down that they were very clearly going for. They wanted him to be almost like a No Country for Old Men type character, except explored a bit more, because, you know, Anton in No Country, you have no idea who the fuck he is. And this, you know a bit more about John Pilgrim. He's the preacher. And he also has a thing that I really need to explain with what I didn't like, because I made a video talking about how the Punisher might go woke, and yeah, I'll get to a lot of that later. But let's just say they might have spread bad blood for no reason. So, continuing on with what I liked. I really liked Billy Russo in the second season. Yeah, he shows up again. He is doing his shit. He's a bad man. He does bad man things. He is disappointingly not disfigured. I mean, you can look at his face in the trailers. You can look at his face in promotional stuff. The dude isn't really that fucked up. If you remember Punisher Warzone, or just even read the comics, Jigsaw is supposed to look disfigured, as in his face got shoved into a meat grinder or something of that equivalent. That's the entire reason of the character. He was a mobster that was very arrogant about his looks, very self-conscious about what people said about how he looked. And the thing with Frank is he ripped that away from him. He disfigured him to the point that he was a freak. And that's why he hated Frank Castle so much. And really, the way the first season ends, it's almost a perfect setup for him to look almost as bad as Dominic West did in Punisher Warzone. I mean, Punisher Warzone wasn't really that great of a movie. It's a lot of fun, but it's not that great. But Jigsaw looks utterly fucked up. They really nailed that part of his character down. So, yeah, he just looks a little too... I'll honestly come out and say it. Billy looks a little too much of the bad boy disfigured, where, yeah, he has a bunch of scars, but it's never anything that's, like, genuinely hard to look at. It's made to look bad, but really any Tumblr fangirl will easily look past it and draw him, I don't know, butt-fucking Frank or something in gay fan art whenever the teenage girls inevitably ruin everything. So, moving on from that. he's a really good actor. The guy who plays Billy is a really good actor, Ben Barnes. He really managed to carry basically his entire side of the plot. Other things I liked. Huh. Yeah, okay. A lot of shit after this is stuff I really didn't like. Okay, so, to put it in perspective, this show should not have been 13 episodes. It is the classic Marvel curse. Anyone that talks about this will say the exact same thing. It should not have been 13 episodes. It should have been, at most, 9 or 8. I cannot see it being stretched that much. And really, with how much it stretches, you really start to feel it. Because, to talk about Punisher Season 1 a little bit more, because I actually do like Season 1 quite a bit. Season 1 also had the same problem where it was just a little too much material spread too thin. Now, I honestly think Season 1 really managed to make it feel as though everything is decently paced. I mean, to me, there's only about an episode or two that you really start to go, why the fuck is this here? I mean, are we really gonna have to sit through this? Why is this here? This is so unimportant. But after that, to me, the show gets good. My kind of standpoint on it is the first 3 or 4 episodes are pretty great. Then, like, the 5th and 6th ones start getting a little chuggish, a little sluggy. After Lewis does his thing and blows up that one thing, then you actually kind of understand where it's all going, how everything's tying into itself. I feel like the plot in Punisher Season 1 was a lot more thought out. I feel like it was just better paced, better structured, and I have a theory on why Season 2 is less so. But I'll get to that more towards the end. Another thing I didn't like, I feel like the whole plot line with the billionaires influencing politics, such as the Russian guy and the old couple, wasn't really as in-depth as it clearly wanted to be. I mean, the old people, I liked the idea behind them where they were kind of the masters behind the throne. They were the guys that set everything up perfectly for themselves and did everything for their own agenda. I really thought that was a cool plot line. And I especially like how Frank essentially just said fuck you to them and did shit that actually got under their skin and pissed them off. I really liked a lot of the concepts around it. But when you really sit back and think, it isn't as satisfying as it could be. And it all revolves around kind of the major glaring issue that I kind of need to talk about right now. And that is, this season is clunky as fuck. Is it as bad as something like an Iron Fist? No, I don't even think Punisher Season 2 is the worst by a margin. Like, by a large margin. Punisher Season 2, to me, is still better than something like Jessica Jones. I still say that it's pretty great. The problem is the fact that there's very obviously 2 conflicting philosophies that are bouncing off each other with this season. Where you have one plot line that is Billy Russo wants to do his thing, and obviously wants to get under Frank's skin, get revenge over what happened in Season 1. Really interesting ideas were with him with, Billy having brain damage and genuinely not remembering what happened in Season 1, and he doesn't understand why people hate him and try to kill him, which I really liked. I thought that was cool. But then you have this other plot line, which is about Frank protecting this teenage girl and uncovering this conspiracy. Hitman's being sent after him, who has an army of mercenaries trying to kill him. I mean, to me, one or the other would have made an amazing season, but it's the fact they tried to do both, which I kind of notice can be a major problem with a lot of Marvel shows where they have a very good idea for the season that gets set up and you're going along with it. Then they try to introduce this other secondary plot out of nowhere that completely skews everything, makes it feel a lot less focused. I mean, I forgave it when Daredevil Season 2 did it because the entire point of that season was Matt Murdock is trying to take care of everyone everywhere, but he can't do that. He can't be everywhere at once, and it's impacting his life in a way he can't control. So I forgave Daredevil Season 2 when out of nowhere Elektra showed up, and he was getting pulled into shit like fighting the Hand. Oh, but he also has to take care of the Punisher trial. Oh shit, the Punisher just broke out of prison, but Matt can't take care of that because now the Hand are doing this other thing. It made sense with the fact that the entire point of that season was showing that Matt was still human. He's not this godlike superhero that can be everywhere at once. So it was able to like subvert that flaw almost and actually be a main point of the season. The problem with something like Punisher Season 2 is it wants to do that. I get the idea. The problem is it builds up a certain amount for one plot line to the point that you think, oh, okay, I guess they just forgot about this guy. Then they immediately jump back to it. I mean, there's like a solid 2 or 3 episodes devoted completely to Billy, almost at the end, which makes sense because he ends up doing a lot of really bad shit. And it's literally to the point that when the preacher assassin guy shows up, I forgot about him. I was legit like, who the fuck is that guy? Oh, wait, no, I know who he is. So not only does it not get that flaw to be as clever as Daredevil Season 2, it actually impacts it and makes you ask, why are you doing it this way? It's a really bad problem. Now, as I said, both plotlines have really good ideas. I liked the Hitman character being a really good foil to Frank, where he has a backstory that's genuinely kind of heartbreaking and sad and makes you go, oh fuck, I hope Frank doesn't actually kill him. I mean, he got fucked over really bad. And it would have been amazing if he had an entire season dedicated to this guy, dedicated to, you know, maybe instead of having Billy show up and do his thing, just have the entire season be about this old couple, you know, basically manipulating this preacher into being their hitman, into being their attack dog. You can see flashbacks from this guy from when he was a piece of shit and how he tried to earn redemption and found God and had a family. I mean, I can see a way you can make this work. Just leave Billy out of the season. Or do it the other way. Focus completely on Billy. Focus completely on him kind of remembering everything that's happening, gaining new relationships, getting deep into the underworld, and have him fully become Jigsaw. Do one or the other. Trying to do both just doesn't work. And it's heartbreaking because, as I said, if one or the other just had a bit more time in the oven, it would have been well and good for a season. Would have been just fine. But I have a theory on why they tried to smush the two ideas together. Now, obviously, there's going to be people that say, well, I don't think that's going to be how it is. I don't think that's what happened. I mean, this is just a theory I'm having. And that is, Punisher Season 2 was in production, you know, for a little bit. I think they actually started working on it really not long after Season 1 came out. Which, you know, that makes sense because it's an episodic show. But the big thing is, this was around the time the Marvel shows really started dying. I mean, Iron Fist got killed not long after. Luke Cage got killed not long after. And then Daredevil ended up being the high-profile, oh, fuck, they're killing everything. And obviously Jessica Jones isn't dead just yet because it has to get Season 3 out. But my theory on why these two seasons, why this season feels like it has two ideas shoved into one is, I think that's literally what happened. They had an idea of, hey, let's adapt this arc. Because the big rumor going around was it was going to adapt the Slavers. It was going to be Frank taking on a sexual slavery operation. And I was convinced for a while, yeah, that's definitely what happened. That isn't it at all. That was complete bullshit, fake news shit. I mean, that was like CNN level comic book news. But essentially, what I think happened was they had an idea to focus completely on John Pilgrim, with maybe passing references to Billy and showing him healing and becoming Jigsaw. That's what I think the idea was going to be. I genuinely think this. We were going to see Billy in the hospital, get a scene or two of him going through physical therapy, not understanding what's going on. He has brain damage. He doesn't remember Madani. But when all the shows started dying, the writers freaked out and thought, we're not getting a third season. So they tried to shove in the Billy season, which I think was supposed to be Season 3, because obviously, you know, you want Frank established as the Punisher, and Billy shows up to fuck with him and completely tear him down. Because that's literally Jigsaw. That's his character. So they freaked out and tried to shove these 2 seasons together into one so they wouldn't have to worry about the show getting killed off before it got to this point or that point. I have no idea if this is the real story or not. I do not believe for a second that we'll ever actually have proof of it. That's just a personal theory that to me makes the most sense. Now, a lot of what happened with Season 2, you can really start to feel the anemia of the ideas, just the lack of substance and meat behind them when you think about that. Because there was that article that came around that was talking about how John Pilgrim was supposed to be an alt-right character. He was supposed to be like a, anti-minority, anti-shit. I don't doubt for a second they were going to do like cartoony fucking version of the alt-right where they're all neo-Nazis and shit. It's like, yeah, the cringy PC shit they want to do now. I don't doubt for a second that was the original plan. But when the theory came into effect and they had to crunch everything down into one season, they cut a lot of that stuff from Pilgrim and actually made him really sympathetic. Now, there are passing references to, like, the old couple running alt-right websites, this Russian billionaire buying politicians, and this passing idea and reference that Russians are interfering with American politics. To me, it never felt like it was trying to be like the California neckbeard hipster version of anything. It felt more like it was just making passing references for like 2 seconds. And honestly, the Russia thing, I felt like it wouldn't be any different in like an actual comic book. A good one. Basically saying, yeah, if there are foreign billionaires out in the world, why wouldn't they get involved in, politics of other nations? So yeah, nothing really too extreme that made me go, oh, fuck you. Them name-dropping the alt-right did make me go, oh, fuck you. But that was literally it. It was that. It was just a reference. And really, hearing that news story and about how John was supposed to apparently be played off as, yeah, this super racist, like, alt-right dude, I think it pissed a lot of people off that it really didn't need to. I saw, like, a headline of an article somewhere that said, like, viewership for Punisher Season 2 dropped, like, a significant chunk compared to Season 1, because Season 1 actually blew up pretty big. I know I was overhearing people, in my everyday life talking about Punisher Season 1. Like, I'd be at the grocery store and I'd hear people say, hey, did you finish Punisher Season 1 yet? I got my friends to watch it, and they were liking it. So, yeah, Punisher Season 1 actually made waves. It was a pretty popular one. And this one, it's like, everyone just wants to forget it, and I think for the wrong reasons. Where everyone wants to forget it because, it's a clunky mess and all that, but to me, it's coming across differently. It comes across as kind of like a tragic, like, self-fulfilling prophecy where they were scared of being canceled, so they rushed things. They tried to squeeze things in together. People didn't like it, so now it's almost guaranteed to get canceled because Netflix is desperate to chop off its own limbs. No, but we get, child tranny shows. Yeah, that's exactly what we want to watch. Child drag queens and Big Mouth. Fuck you, Netflix. Fuck you. Ghost in the Shell better be fucking good. It better be fucking good. Anyway, moving on. So, with this season, with John Pilgrim as a character, because I really think he's the most interesting part of it all. Essentially, you have a character that was blatantly written to be an ex-racist neo-Nazi dude, and I'm not talking alt-right, he was straight up ex-neo-Nazi. He found God, found a family, found redemption, and is now being forced against his will to essentially act as the hitman for a corrupt, rich family, essentially grooming their son to become the president of the United States. And it's actually a really sad story because you find out his wife is dying and they're giving her cutting-edge medicine he would never have had access to. They're taking care of his children, and you find out that he's doing everything just to keep his family alive and together, but when he's forced to go to New York, he ends up confronting his old gang, ends up getting pulled back into the same habits and addictions he tried his best to escape from. Like I said, the guy actually is a really strong character, and if they made an entire movie just about this guy, and just about him trying to get redemption while protecting his family while being controlled by people who are very obviously evil, I think it would actually be a really interesting story. I think this guy got fucked over by being shoved into a season that didn't focus enough on him. Because really, when he's allowed to shine, he's a badass. He really is a badass. Now, the violence is about, about as good as Punisher Season 1. It's just, I don't know, something about it wasn't really as captivating as it was back then for me. Season 1, to me, felt a lot more savage. I mean, Frank hurt people really fucking bad in Season 1. And that's not to say he didn't do the exact same thing to people in Season 2. It's just, Season 2, I feel like the moments where he was genuinely the monstrous badass he should be were fewer, but way better. The bar fight was pretty good. That was in Episode 1. And I liked a lot of what it did. But then you would have these moments that just felt really strange, and I'm not going to say bad, because I like the ideas behind them. It's just, it doesn't feel as captivating. You don't feel as though you should be as compelled as you should be. That sounds weird, but essentially, in one of the earlier seasons, Frank essentially gets pulled into an assault on Precinct 13 situation where he's stuck in jail, all these mercenaries are coming to kill him, and he's trying to convince the cops to let him out so he can kill everybody else. It's a really cool idea, and I like the fact that, as stated, it's basically Assault on Precinct 13, which if you haven't seen it, that's a really good movie. The remake's okay, but the original John Carpenter one, that's fucking classic. But essentially, the big problem with it is it wants to feel like it's this brutal-ass story where cops are struggling to stay alive, surrounded by people that are just way better. But, I don't know, it didn't feel as though it was as powerful as it should have been. And I have no idea why. I have no idea if it has anything to do with, like, subtle changes in direction compared to Season 1, where Season 1, Frank was essentially this literal vicious murdering monster that people were scared of, and even Micro was like, dude, you're fucking crazy. And Season 2, he's played off more as, like, ironically enough, almost a superhero in a lot of ways, where everyone's like, well, maybe we need to let Frank off the leash, maybe I need to call Frank, maybe I need to get Frank to do this. And I don't know, it's just, something just didn't keep me as interested, it didn't keep me as invested. Another thing is actually pretty small, but I did notice a few inaccuracies on how guns would work and kind of how you would do certain things in certain situations. I mean, this is very small because, even though we live in a, as Weaponized Nerd Rage would put it, a post-John Wick world where having bad gunplay in a movie is kind of inexcusable now, and bad gunplay in a show is kind of inexcusable now, because if you're going to have an emphasis on, gunplay, fighting, action, anything with that style, especially if you have characters that have a military background, the worst thing you can do is fuck up how they would do things, because otherwise it feels extremely cringy and like people playing pretend. It can really shatter the immersion pretty bad when that happens. And Punisher sadly has a moment or two where that happens. And thankfully these are pretty small, but as stated, if you know how shit like this actually operates, which I don't pretend to be an expert, but this is like common knowledge, it's kinda hard not to see it. One is actually a pretty small moment where Frank gets shot in the ass. A ricochet hits him literally in the ass. It's played as a joke, and he has to have the teenage girl dig the bullet out and fix up the wound. One thing I did notice with that, now he did say, it didn't go into too deep, but with a gunshot wound, you don't stitch that up. You pack the wound. You find something like gauze, or honestly, and people are probably going to say this is nuts, but you can actually use cornstarch to essentially pack up that wound, because obviously if you just stitch it up, the damaged tissue underneath the wound is going to go bad and give you an infection. You're supposed to pack it so it can heal naturally at its own pace. Very small thing, but as stated, if you already know this, you're kind of thinking to yourself, man, that actually could have been a really good opportunity to show people how that would work. A movie that did that really well was Shooter, where it actually showed how to treat a gunshot wound. Shooter's a really good movie, by the way. It's cheesy as fuck, but a lot of the gunplay and stuff is really fun. Another moment I noticed was when John Pilgrim ends up getting shot in the leg with a sawed-off shotgun. Yes, a sawed-off shotgun. You know, the big-ass double barrel that you would see Bruce Campbell use in Army of Darkness. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, that would take off his leg, obviously. Getting shot with a blast from a shotgun like that will rip your leg off. No, instead it tried to make it seem like, oh, he just got peppered with the pellets and he had to dig them out individually. It's like, okay, I understand that it's a metal as fuck concept, you know, having to individually peck out every single pellet from a shotgun, but that's not how that would work. It'd be one thing if it was from a further distance where the pellets had enough time to slow down to where it wouldn't have enough force to rip through his leg, but it wasn't. It was in a trailer. It was in a trailer at almost point-blank range. It was a double-barreled shotgun that would rip your leg off. I mean, there's no two ways about it. He would lose that leg. Everyone can say, oh, that's Fallout logic. No, that's what would actually happen if you were that close to a double-barrel shotgun. It would open you up. It's brutal. And as stated, these are small things, but stuff like that can really add up. Because, yeah, I guarantee you, if you have a buddy or a relative that was in the military, especially if they were an actual veteran, and you watch this with them, they will spend so much time pointing out inaccuracies, saying, that's not how you would do that, that's not how you do that, that's not how that works. And, you know, over time, you do kind of think to yourself, yeah, that's a little Hollywood, that's a little stylish for the sake of being stylish. And whether or not you actually care about that is up to you. Like I said, it's a very small complaint. But stuff like that can add up. So I'm going to cut this off at this point because I've rambled on about this way too long. It's almost 30 minutes. I have no fucking clue how I managed to stretch talking about Punisher Season 2 to 30 minutes. But there you go. YouTube can't complain that I'm making small videos. So yeah, see ya.